You think it is a bigger deterrent to take somebody who's on a computer looking at sexual images of children in the most disgusting way is to supervise their computer habits versus putting them in jail?
No, Senator, I didn't say versus.
That's exactly what you said. I think the best way to deter people from getting on a computer and viewing thousands and hundreds and over time, maybe millions, the population as a whole, of children being exploited and abused every time somebody clicks on is to put their ass in jail, not supervise their computer usage.
A little bit of fireworks there on day 3 yesterday. Lindsey Graham and Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Of course, today she moves closer to that seat on the highest court in our land. This despite some serious objections from Senate Republicans. It is the last day of confirmation hearings for Biden's Supreme Court nominee. Joining us live with the latest is our Capitol Hill correspondent, Kilmeny Dukart. Kilmeny.
Bianca, John, Republicans have been trying to get those pre-sentencing reports from some of Judge Jackson's cases, including the ones involving child pornography offenders, as you just heard Republican Senator Lindsey Graham talking about a moment ago. A dozen Republicans signed a letter calling for their release, but the issue resurfaced again a short time ago, leading to this exchange between Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn and the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin.
Someone was harmed as a result of it. I'm going to resist it every step of the way.
No one wants to harm children.
Then leave the reports concealed. Leave the reports concealed.
And there's, well, what is in the reports that we cannot go into a classified setting?
I want to tell you something. If you are a parent of some child who's been exploited and you recognize this judge's name as perhaps have presided at the trial and realize that now the report, the report that has been kept in confidence all these years is now going to be handed over to the United States Senate Judiciary Committee, what would you think as a mother if it were your daughter?
Well, that exchange continued on for some time with some back and forth between both of the senators, but there have been multiple criticisms of Judge Jackson when it comes to her criticism of the criminal justice system. An organization called First Liberty gave their testimony. They are an organization that is against teaching critical race theory in schools, and they explained why they will not be supporting Judge Jackson.
Ultimately, a judge should consider America's history as a lesson and a blueprint for why and how we must constantly seek to uphold and protect America's founding promises. For these reasons, First Liberty opposes the nomination.
Well, the American Bar Association has classified Judge Jackson as highly qualified. But again, Republicans have been left frustrated here, not getting answers to a lot of the questions that they have about these specific cases, but also any concrete idea of what her judicial philosophy is.
All right, Kilmeny Dukart for us live on Capitol Hill. Thanks, Kilmeny. Let's welcome in now Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida. He's a member of the House Oversight and Budget Committees. Congressman, great to see you.
Good being with you.
All right, so Democrats and the legacy media, and you saw probably Cory Booker lavishing so much approval on Judge Brown Jackson. Any attempt to take a look at her judicial record has been cast as a racist attempt or however you want to characterize it. When you look at these confirmation hearings, are we getting anything out of this? Are we learning anything about this judge? Or do you think this is really just kind of like a rubber stamp operation here?
No, we're not really getting much at all. The only thing we're really getting is we're seeing Judge Brown Jackson, her ability to answer questions and even get away from some of the key points of the question. We know what her acumen is. We know what her school credentials are. We know about her time on the court. But what we are not getting is not only her judicial philosophy, which is frankly the number one thing that matters for a Supreme Court justice, but number two, we're not getting how she views the criminal justice system, and even the basic thing that Senator Blackburn asked, like what constitutes, how do you define a woman? Because these cultural issues are moving through the court. And if you have somebody who sits on the Supreme Court who literally cannot tell you that a woman is somebody who has an X chromosome, how are they going to rule when it comes to these matters going in front of the highest court in the land? These are serious questions. I understand the frustrations from the Republicans. And for the Democrats, this is the same party that went into yearbooks for Judge Kavanaugh, that questioned Judge Barrett's religion relentlessly. They have no problem attacking Republican nominees. We don't need to remember Clarence Thomas's confirmation, or Robert Bork, or Miguel Estrada. They have done this time and time again, but now they want to play with kid gloves. They're disingenuous to me. I don't care what their opinions are. We need to get to the bottom, get to the truth on Judge Brown Jackson's judicial philosophy. It matters for the future of America.
We need to, but I don't think we're going to, because we're not going to see her in a public setting again, and she has the votes. But I want to focus, you were talking earlier about her inability to define what it means to be a woman. Senator Ted Cruz followed up on that, and this is what he asked her. Take a look.
If I decide right now that I'm a woman, then apparently I'm a woman. Does that mean that I would have Article 3 standing to challenge a gender-based restriction?
Senator, to the extent that you are asking me about who has the ability to bring lawsuits based on gender, those kinds of issues are working their way through the courts, and I'm not able to comment on them.
Yeah, and so that was her answer, the one you referenced there. That doesn't make anyone feel better about this, and it's precisely why we want to know the answer and how she comes down on this.
No, I totally agree. It doesn't help me feel better. And let's be very clear. She is looking forward to get seated on the Supreme Court. So she can answer this question. If she was going to be an active judge in the appellate system, she might go back depending on what happens in the Senate over the next couple of weeks. But I doubt it. But because she's trying to go higher, she does have an ability to answer this question. The truth of the matter is that she does not want to answer, because if she answers with the truth that, yes, that people who have an X chromosome are women, people who have a Y chromosome are men, then the radical left organizations that are supporting her nomination will begin to disavow her nomination, and she'll have trouble in the Democrat side of not only the United States Senate, but on the Democrat side of the country. That's why she won't answer.
Let's talk about the president. He, of course, is in Brussels now. The American public, though, does not seem to be rallying behind the president or the flag. It's typically the case when you see a major military conflict like what's happening in Ukraine. There's a new NORC AP poll out that shows the president's approval number just at 43%, even lower when you take a look at specific issues like the economy and foreign policy, even lower when you look at his ability to manage the military in this country. So as we look at the prospect of dealing with both Vladimir Putin and President Xi, not a lot of confidence, Congressman, in President Biden's ability to do that.
Well, it goes without saying why. This is the same president who literally had soldiers be discharged because they wouldn't go get the COVID-19 vaccination. A completely idiotic decision by the president of the United States. But Joe Biden has been wrong on every issue facing Americans. And you can't just blame high gas prices on Russia. Gas prices in the United States have been rising for a very long time through his presidency before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. So the problem is the American people know that Joe Biden's policies have been wrong. His leadership has been faulty. And so even though we're united behind Ukraine, a lot of Americans are very concerned, and rightfully so. They do not believe that Joe Biden has the ability to lead America and also lead the world.
His speech is coming up today at 3 p.m. Eastern. What do you hope to hear from the president?
My hope is that he's going to talk about how NATO not only is unified, but is prepared to deal with a serious Russian threat, that we're actually going to continue to help Ukraine get the military armaments that they need to continue to stand off the Russian invasion. Because this Russian invasion into Ukraine is not only an assault against sovereignty and liberty, it also sets up further conflicts in the future. The United States must be strong. NATO must be strong. We must stand firm against Russian aggression. I hope that's what we hear from the president today.
Congressman Byron Donalds, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Anytime.